So when it comes to scaling a flipping business, a lot of times you'll hear people say, I want to do some of the work myself because I know I can do it cheaper. And that's good and well, but any human only has 24 hours in a day. You can only do so much if you're going to do the work yourself. So the key to scaling is those contractor relationships. We kind of live by the motto, always be networking. So we are constantly looking for new contractors, new subs, just because there's a good contractor is in high demand right now. So they always have multiple jobs going. We have multiple jobs going. So a lot of times you have to have more than one person for each job type. So we are always looking and always building those relationships as we continue to scale and buy more and more houses, just because one contractor can only get to so much. So if we have more than he can handle, we're gonna have to have a few more. I tell people all the time, if you only want to flip 1 or 2 houses a year, you don't need New Again. You need New Again if you want a scalable, larger business. So if you're wanting to flip more than 1 or 2 a year, I really believe that the resources that New Again provides from a construction support standpoint, helping you make sure you're buying the right deal from the lead generation side that's needed if you're wanting to buy more than 1 or 2 a year, and then also from the financial standpoint of what they provide with Alta Capital, all of those resources that are out there is definitely needed.
And I'd add just the sense of community. I mean, the community support, able to bounce ideas off of other franchise owners, off of the support team, the coaching that's provided is invaluable from a business perspective. And truly, even the support for things you may not think about that the franchise would offer, like our bookkeeping, our accounting, the processes and systems that are set up that have really helped us as we got our business started that we would not have had we started on our own. So I think that's been very helpful.
They've had a lot of resources for things we didn't know would be a problem as we begin to scale. So they're kind of looking out as you hit those next stepping stones of building a business.
And just that they're constantly growing. I mean, we're now, it seems crazy to say this, but we're kind of one of the early franchises at this point. And just to see how much advancement and development that they've done on the system and the franchise itself in the 2.5 years since we got started is crazy to see, truthfully.
Very, very different.
I would say for me, my biggest hesitation of starting the franchise in the beginning as we started having these discussions between ourselves was probably just our lack of experience. I mean, we didn't have experience in the construction or even the real estate world. So it was a little scary to think about that, but that was probably my biggest hesitation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A lot of it was experience, not knowing where to start, but then also just money. Everybody has this idea, I won't say I guess you'd say a misconception that you have to have just piles of cash sitting in the corner of your house to get involved in real estate, but it's just not really the case. And New Again helps with a lot of that, helping you figure out how to keep from having to do that. Probably the biggest value add that we have had from New Again, if I had to pick one thing, would be the construction support. So when you don't have construction experience or you haven't flipped houses in the past and you're looking at a deal, you're looking at a house, you're thinking about buying it, and you have this huge ball of nerves and you're like, am I screwing up? Because it's not like you're buying a $10 item that if it breaks, whatever, you're buying a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 house. So to have people who have 50 to 100 years of experience all combined, looking over all of your deals, it makes you much more at ease when they look at it and they go, yeah, you were right when you thought about this, you were right when you thought about that, you're buying a good deal, we're comfortable with this, go buy the house. So you kind of go in with a different peace of mind knowing that somebody else has already looked over it.
I think for me, the biggest value add that the New Again franchise has offered is all the partners that they connect us with and I spoke to this previously, but the bookkeeping, the accounting, the pieces that you don't necessarily think of from a construction standpoint, but that all go into owning your own business. Even down to the design and things to do on the houses and things you don't think of what is the best value, what gives you the most value in a new property. So I think for me, that's probably been one of the biggest values that they've been able to give us and help us out with getting started.
I think the most fulfilling part of flipping houses is you clean out a house, you see the story that was there before, you then fix that house up, make it a much more beautiful place. But then to think that that might be somebody's first home, or that might be some young couple or some young family, and this is going to be their new house, and this is going to be a huge part of their story, of their life. Hey, remember when we bought that first house? It was so pretty, all these different things about it. I think you're providing a vital piece for some person's life and their story, because for most people the biggest purchase they will ever make is their home, and you're providing an awesome resource, an awesome item for them to be able to purchase.
I've always really enjoyed design and picking out colors and just everything that goes into designing a home, my own home. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to do that on a larger scale and a little more often. You can only change your own home so often. So for me, it's a lot of fun to be able to pick out those things and to try to find the things to piggyback off of what Stephen said too, that other people will appreciate and love and be able to make their own as they build their own story in the house.
It's been 2 years since we've been in business. As we look back at those 2 years, all the struggles, all the challenges that we've had to overcome to kind of reach this point, if we had to stop and look forward for the next 2 years, I really believe we can be in a position where we're flipping consistently 10 to 15 houses a year, keeping a few of those each year as rentals to build that wealth portion, to really build a legacy for those who come behind us, build all of those things. So we really want to move more so into larger flips, bigger construction budgets, all of those things, but then also just the wealth side of it with the rentals over the next 2 years.
So in owning the business together, you know, a lot of couples own it. Stephen and I are a brother and sister duo, and truthfully that's probably been one of the more challenging things for us, is figuring out that balance, figuring out which parts he owns, which parts I own. And so that's still an ongoing thing as the business grows and develops. We're still developing into that and figuring out what works best for us. But you know, what we have found in a lot of ways, he lives a little closer to a lot of our flip properties, so he's boots on the ground a lot of time, dealing with the contractors and things more, while I'm doing more of the back end things like picking out designs, helping with the bookkeeping, tax prep, all the stuff that can be done from a distance a little more.
Yeah, I handle all of the construction side of it, making sure all the houses are moving on pace. Funny thinking about a house moving on schedule, but all things going on schedule, all things getting completed the way they need to be done, and just keeping all of that moving, getting more and more houses ready to list.
And just keeping good communication. I mean, I think that's been also an ongoing thing for us. We communicate well as brother and sister, as friends, but in a business sense, just kind of learning how the best way to communicate and stay in touch and make sure everything's getting handled has been a learning experience, but we're getting there.
Yeah. One of the cool things about flipping houses, it's one of the dirty parts of it is cleaning out all of the junk that's left behind. When you buy houses as is, you very rarely get a house that's just super clean, what you would see on the market. So we buy very nasty looking houses, but it's always interesting because you'll go clean out a house and it's kind of like the house has a story. You're like, what happened? Because it's like somebody lived here one evening and then left in the middle of the night and just never came back. Or what exactly was going on, what was happening. You can kind of see how they lived their life. You can see all the different stuff they left, the stuff they collected. It's just kind of interesting to see how every house has its own story.
So to add on to what Stephen said, I think one of the other cool things is as you go into the house to find features in it that are the character in the house that you can keep. So obviously we're flipping the houses, we're making improvements and updates, but you also a lot of times find cool features and things that you want to hold on to or improve on just a little bit and keep the character of the house, the history of the house, and keep some of that story that he was referring to. We're just giving that whole soul a new story.